Robert Thomas and Buchy spoke about the season, and some of the things that they said were quite interesting. So let's get into it here on Locked On Blues.
Hey, this is Braden Chen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk about some of the things that Robert Thomas and Buchy said. Jets fans, you and I, we need to talk. And then finally, we need to address the fact that the draft is coming up next month and maybe some realistic expectations that we can set and positions that we might try to go after. But again, busy episode, so let's go dive right into it. Obviously, the season came to an end in a way that we all didn't like, right? And it was very apparent from Robert Thomas and Buchy's reactions on how it kind of just fell apart. And the one takeaway that I will say from Buchy, even though he didn't want to be there, probably like he looked like he didn't want to be there, is that the tone is set for next season. And he said, it sucks, the loss, but at the end of the day, it sets the tone for how this club is going to be next season. And we heard that too with Braden Shen and Jordan Kyrou, and not Snuggie really, because again, like he just talked about how he had a great experience. And I think for guys that have been veterans on this team, it's really important for them to set the tone. With Robert Thomas, he talked about wanting to be in the Olympics and that, he grew up watching, Sidney Crosby representing Team Canada. And Robert Thomas is my boy. He's my boy. I love him and he's my favorite player because at the end of the day, he's the best player on this team and he accomplished a lot of things personally. And he said that if it wasn't for the team and how they played, he wouldn't have done that. So I do believe, I know that going to the Olympics is a goal for Robert Thomas. I do believe that he will get there because, again, there's not a player that works as hard as he does. But again, there's a lot that's going to happen between now and then. And I think for the Blues, they have to just focus on how they're going to come back from, what happened. He says that they have to come back better than ever next season. And I believe that. And he says that he made progress this season. The team did. But right now it sucks. And there's no denying that. I think when you're so close to going to the next round, right? 1.6 seconds away, it's brutal. It is. And it's devastating. It's heartbreaking. It's all of those things. But again, you have to reflect on the good of this season. And even the fact that this team made the playoffs and they had that push with the 12-game win streak breaking a franchise record, you have to look at that positive too. And I think that collectively, the guys are acknowledging that, but at the same time still displaying their disappointment, which is very normal. I would have been more annoyed and upset if I watched these end of the season exit interviews and the guys were like, oh, this is fine, because it would show me that they don't have fuel for next year. But now with how they're interacting with the media and how they're displaying their annoyance and disappointment, it allows me as a fan to say to myself, okay, maybe there is some more, motivation within the clubhouse now. And that's going to translate to everything. It's going to translate to what they do in the off season, to training camp, and for next season. And I think that's really important. One thing that Braden Shen said was that we're not because people say, oh, well, this team's like a playoff team because, they're going to probably go to the playoffs or whatever. I liked what he said about, hey, you can't call us a playoff team until we're in the playoffs again. And I love that underdog mentality. I love that so much because that is exactly how this team needs to be. They need to put their heads down. They need to put in the work, and they need to just continue to go after it. And Robert Thomas and Buchy said that this is a team where players want to come here, and they're building that culture. And I think that the culture that they're building is exactly what being a St. Louis Blue is all about. I grew up watching the Blues, right? And I loved my boy Chris Pronger, and he really did represent what being a Blue was all about. And I think that when you play with the toughness and their resilience, and you're really putting your all in, and you're not afraid to hit, you're not afraid to be risky on the ice, that is what playing as a Blue is. And you have to play with your heart too at the end of the day. And Montgomery came in here, and he had a culture change with this team. And I give a lot of credit to him because, again, these guys began to believe in themselves. And yes, ending disappointing. Listen, I'm still trying to process this. I'm sure the guys are still trying to process this too. So I can understand how maybe they're not, the most overjoyed versions of themselves during exit interview day. And I wouldn't expect them to be by any means. But I do think that it is interesting, though, that they talked so far, and I'm going to break, each group down day by day, but just about the fact that it is really the culture that's changed. And that to me is exciting. And that to me gives me a lot of joy and a lot of promise. And again, it's the culture. And that is what we need to remember, that it is all about the culture. And for Robert Thomas, going to the Olympics, as I mentioned, is his goal. And I do believe that he can get there. I do believe, and I'll say it once and I'll say it again, Robert Thomas is probably one of the most underrated players in the NHL, in my opinion. I know he's our 1C, but at the end of the day, Thomas is 25, going to be 26 by the beginning of next season. And let's, for one moment, I think we need to collectively just talk about how we did this season, because it truly was astonishing. In the 52 games that he played in the playoffs, right? Because I'm going to do playoff stats and then I'll do regular stats. He played 52 games, right? He had 6 goals, 20 assists, 26 points in his collective playoff run, right? This year in 7 games, 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points. Yeah. Like, Robert Thomas is insane. And then we look at the regular season, right? And this season he played 70 games because he was out due to injury. And he had 21 goals, 60 assists, matching the same amount of assists that he had last season at 60, and gaining 81 points, and he was plus 20. So again, when you ask me who the best player in the St. Louis Blues is, obviously it's going to be Robert Thomas. And I am a huge, huge, huge fan of Robert Thomas. And again, one of the things that I think that he said about his own personal achievements, I love that he did give credit to the team and said, if it wasn't for how they played, I wouldn't have achieved my goals. And again, Buchy was asked, and it was a tough question. What was it like being on the ice when, Winnipeg scored? And, he said it sucked. And that, to me, the way that Buchy was reacting, I don't see it as annoyance. I see it as disappointment. And again, that's going to fuel the fire. I don't see any reason why this team wouldn't be fueled, right? Obviously, we're going to have moves this offseason. Like, we need to, again, luckily, I'm really happy that no defenseman came up yet in my episode because I'm doing it day by day. But when we talk about the defensive players, there's going to be some actual conversation of where do we go from here? I mean, offensively, could there be tweaks? Absolutely. And I think the tweaks are going to be minor. I don't see there being any big tweaks. But for the things that do need adjustments, again, just my own personal opinion, I still think that maybe we need to work a little bit on the third line. I love the fourth line, and I have like this really bad fever dream about like something happening with Nathan Walker. I don't know. Like, I love the fourth line. I'm biased. I love it. So for me, I'm really happy with them. But overall, I just think that right now we just need to shift the focus onto the team's identity and really just trying to get these guys, better than ever for next season, because I don't want to have to wait until the final couple games of the season to see if we're going to make it to the playoffs. I want it to be locked in and secured, kind of like locked on, right? Tex CA, by the way, will be going to Worlds. Only player from the team, I believe, going to Worlds. So congratulations to Texty A. I need to talk to you, Jets fans, because enough is enough. I see your comments on my videos and we need to address it. But first, Bear Mattress.
An award-winning mattress can change your life. I speak from experience. It happened to me. After years of uncomfortable sleeps, I recently switched to Bear Mattress, and the results were instant. Bear Mattress is designed with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. I used to deal with night sweats, but Bear's best-in-class cooling ensures optimal temperature regulation, which prevents overheating and helps me stay comfortable all night long. Bear offers a wide variety of mattresses, but to get the right one for you, take their sleep quiz that matches you to your perfect mattress based on body type and sleep preferences. Go to bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
So, was I a sore loser? Yeah, I'll admit it. I was. I don't know. Well, actually, no, I was hurt. I think that's what it was. I was hurt, not sore, but I was still obviously upset. I crashed out. We all crashed out. I crashed out. Listen, my team lost in the most brutal way. They had a 2-goal lead with a couple minutes left, and then with 1.6 seconds left, the Jets tie it. Then they go to double OT, and then boom, they win. They move on, and yeah, it sucks. It was crushing. I'm not going to get over it like day by day. Like, I'm getting there, but it's not like, a loss where I can look back and say, oh, the Jets, they had it the whole game. Like, no, the Blues had it the whole game and they blew it. So, yeah, that sucks. But I think Jets fans need to realize that it is okay for Blues fans to be upset. Kind of like the Avalanche fans, right? Losing in a way like the Avalanche did, the Blues did. It's heartbreaking. Now, let's go say we went into Game 7. And the Jets scored like a couple goals off the bat and they consistently had the lead and they won in regulation. Okay, it would have sucked, but fine. When your team has the lead for majority of the game and the other team ties it with 1.6 seconds left, yeah, it's really upsetting. So I think for me, where I am coming from isn't me being jealous. I'm none of that. I'm coming from me just talking about as a Blues fan how upsetting it was. I have acknowledged multiple times on this podcast that the Jets are missing some of their best players, and there is no denying that by any means. But again, even the Jets' worst players can still outplay the Blues' players, right? Now, again, did I think it was fluky what happened in St. Louis? A little bit. I thought that was kind of weird. I did not expect the Jets to crumble like that. But I did it we had a national show here on this podcast called The Squad Show. And I even said in last night that Connor Hellebuck is a great goalie, multi-time Vezina winning goalie. And that's something that's a huge accomplishment. And I'll give him credit. I don't think he's a bad goalie by any means. I think that sometimes goalies, they have bad games too, like other players, right? That doesn't take away from how talented he is. I can acknowledge, too, that after Josh Morrissey got hurt in the last game, that the Jets were only playing with 5 defensemen. Like, I can acknowledge that, and I am not denying by any means any hardships that the Jets had to face. You have your head coach a finalist for the Jack Adams, not Coach Montgomery, but it's fine. I mean, like, Hartnell's good. But the point is, your team, the Winnipeg Jets, won the President's Trophy. That's an accomplishment that, again, this team, the Jets team, deserved it. They worked hard, and I'll give you credit where credit is due. It's a compliment, really, to you. But you're the 1 seed heading into the playoffs. I know what everyone said, oh, the Blues are the hottest team in the NHL. Okay, well, let me put it this way. Who was the team that ended the Blues' winning streak? The Jets. Okay, let me continue on. Was it the Jets' fan base and other teams' fan base that said, oh, well, the Blues only have this win streak because they were playing relatively easy teams? Those were all of the comments that I heard during that win streak. I don't mind going back and posting them because those were the comments that I was getting on my channel. I love the Blues. I talk about the Blues every day. First off, it's hypocritical. And secondly, the Jets were the 1 seed going against the 8th seed team, and they had to pull their goalie 3 times on the road. Now, again, I can acknowledge the Jets were missing some good players. The Blues, on the other hand, were playing their hardest with the guys that they have as their main guys. And let me remind you, Dylan Holloway, who is a huge asset for us, couldn't even play. And that was only one player that we were really missing. So, like, again, it's like day and night. When I was watching the Locked On Jets host, Harrison, he was on the national show, and he said, this is a team of destiny. I want to say I disagree. And it's going to actually surprise maybe Jets fans on why I think this way, in a good way. The Jets, even with missing some of their better players, right? Despite everything, they have a really good team. They do. The way that they won, sure. Was it fluky? Was it kind of like out of a storybook? Absolutely. And I know on this podcast I have said Blues in 6, Blues in 7, because I'm a Blues fan. I'm going to be biased. But if I'm looking at this objectively, the 1 seed should be beating the 8th seed. Like, upsets happen. I know that's hockey. But again, that is where I get confused because the narrative continuously switches. And maybe it switches to fit the narrative for Jets fans. I don't know necessarily why it's always switching, but the narrative is switching. So when I'm voicing how upset I am, I could say the Blues were a team of destiny. They weren't supposed to be in the playoffs. They were a bottom 7 team before they went on their win streak. And again, like, gaining 26 plus points, like, that's insane. And my only comment that I would like to make from that is that it's okay for Blues fans to be upset, just like it is for Jets fans to be excited. But I'm posting videos about how upset I am about, everything really, like, about how the loss sucked. But I think as hockey fans, we're all so passionate. So when I see like other people invalidating how I'm feeling because they're excited about their team, it's bad sportsmanship. Like, I can say I crashed out, like 100% I crashed out. Like, who wouldn't crash out? I think that, like, it's one of those things where me crashing out isn't because it's just because I care. Like, I crashed out. Like, I did a 42-minute live stream after the Blues lost. And I just was sitting there with my hand on my head, just like, how did this happen? I mean, I'm also the same person that I recorded my reaction to the game-tying goal because I thought it was me celebrating a victory, and I wanted to get my reaction, and all of a sudden you just see in the video me just deflated. And it was one of the most soul-crushing things. Like, I really haven't experienced anything like this in a while. And I go silent, I go numb, like, I don't want to talk about it, but then I have a job to do. And I'm like, okay, well, no, I have to talk about it. And then I'm seeing these comments of Jets fans saying, like, let's go to Jets on all my videos. I'm like, okay, like, are you triggering me? Like, a little bit. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, it does bother me because, again, it's just one of those things that I just don't want to see. I'm excited for the Jets Star series. I'm sure that's going to be a good series. Like, woohoo, I love playoff hockey. So, like, any playoff game, like, excites me. But it's one of those situations where I just feel like I took the L. I handled myself well. But at the same time, it still sucks. And two things can be true. I can be accepting of the loss, but at the same time, I can still be like, oh, well, this is a little bit of a tough situation. So that's that. But I wanted to let the Jets fans know how I feel because it's really important to really voice. But one of my favorite things to talk about is the draft, and we're going to talk about that after I tell you about my wonderful friends at Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or I just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get snackin' and get crackin' with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. See, now I'm hungry, and it's funny because I always get hungry when I do these ad reads. All right, let's talk about the draft. So the Blues are going to be drafting 19th overall. And for me, it's a really interesting situation because the Blues last year drafted 16th overall, and they got Adam Juracek. That interview that I did with Adam Juracek, by the way, is up live on my YouTube channel. Yes, I was at Vegas. I was credentialed to cover the draft for the Blues, and I was able to talk to Juracek. It was his 18th birthday. It was a really cool situation for me personally as a journalist, and again, really excited about him. But going from 16 to 19, in my opinion, with now playoff experience for the younger guys, is actually not that bad. I think for me, it's either you're going to get in the top 10 or you're going to try to gain the playoff experience for the players. And I'm glad that the guys got the playoff experience because that's more motivating than just sitting in the bottom 10, right? So let's talk about maybe some names that you might be seeing. So for me personally, I like Jackson Smith. He plays in the WAHL. He's 6'4", 194 pounds. But he's a defenseman, right? And here's the thing. The Blues need defense. Now, again, do I think that these guys are going to be ready for this upcoming season? No. I don't think any of the guys in this draft will be. And it's funny because I think that when we're kind of talking about, next season, it's going to be one of those seasons where you're going to have to kind of maybe rely on some of the guys that you have, developing in Springfield. You're going to have to maybe have some trades. But with this draft, I mean, the talent isn't to the caliber that it was last year or the season prior. And even next year is going to be really good. But the reason why I like Jackson Smith, right? As I mentioned, WHL, he's a left-handed defenseman, but his height, this 6'4" for me is what does it. He's from Calgary. And again, I really see a lot of good potential for him. And this season, again, you have to look at the fact that he is a defenseman who's putting up 43 assists. Yeah, 43 assists. He's had playoff experience too this year, which is really cool too. He's actually playing in the World. He played in the World Juniors. So that's really good as well. But again, he is somebody that's high on my personal list, and I do like him. I'm looking at a lot of defensemen because I think that's where the boys are kind of lacking, right? And it's just, to me, something where there's a lot of guys that are actually playing from colleges in the States, which is really interesting. Like, I'm seeing a lot of, Boston University, Arizona State. Colin Potter is actually from Arizona State. He's a center, 6'10". I wouldn't take him. Personally, that's just my opinion. I would really go with defense. And that is why, again, with Jackson Smith, that's the guy that I wanted to focus on today. Right now, I mean, he's really ranked all over. He's ranked 13th, 9th, all over, even like 20. Like, it's really inconsistent. But I think with the Blues being at 19, they should not try to trade up. You should not try to trade up in this draft because the most I can say NHL soon to be ready guys are within the top 8. I would say Roger McQueen, who's a center, by the way, would probably be the last guy that would only take a couple years or a year or 2 years to develop. Other than that, I just don't see some of these guys developing. And again, Do I think like a Brady Martin could develop in a couple of years? Absolutely. But just from what I'm seeing of the tape that I'm watching, I just wouldn't feel confident saying that. I would say maybe 3 years for a guy like him. But again, it's a tough draft. I mean, obviously, James Higgins has fallen back a little bit. Michael Misa. But again, the Blues don't want a center right now. They really need to focus on defense, and because that's where they're struggling. And that is why with this draft, I'm not saying it's not important for the Blues, but it wouldn't be my biggest priority list of the focus for next season. So that's just my opinion on it. We'll talk more prospects like we usually do, but I wanted to also mention that again, I love the draft stuff. I love looking at, all of the guys and tapes, and I love it. Like that's my time to shine. So I'll talk more about that. Even if you're not a Blues fan and you just want to know about some of the players, definitely check out my shows, and I always post prospects. All right, I will talk to you tomorrow. Some more exit interviews, some interesting comments that were made as well. So we'll talk more tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.